Just when we think we know Jesus, darned if he doesn't throw us a curveball. Most of us, if asked to summarize the message of Jesus, would use words like love, peace, acceptance, reconciliation. Indeed, quoting the Apostle Paul, we speak of the ministry of reconciliation each and every Sunday when we pass the peace in worship. But then Jesus says something so seemingly contrary to all that, it just leaves us scratching our heads. Today's passage is one of these contrarian statements of Jesus. Hello, I'm Stuart Baskin, pastor of First Presbyterian Church of Tyler, Texas, and this is your daily devotional for Monday, January 2nd, 2023. Just a quick reminder that in these days of Christmastide, between Christmas Day and the Epiphany, I am listening to Jesus in his own words tell us why he came. So there's a pair of parallel passages in Matthew and Luke that shock me every time I read them, and I've read them both hundreds of times. I'm going to read the one out of Matthew because I think it better frames what is at stake and helps us make sense of what Jesus is saying to us. To set the context, Jesus has gathered his 12 disciples and is preparing to send them out among who he calls the lost sheep of Israel. In the middle of a rather lengthy discourse, he tells them this: "Do not think that I have come to bring peace to the earth. I have not come to bring peace, but a sword. For I have come to set a man against his father, and a daughter against her mother, and a daughter-in-law against her mother-in-law, and one's foes will be members of one's own household. Whoever loves father or mother more than me is not worthy of me, and whoever loves son or daughter more than me is not worthy of me. And whoever does not take up the cross and follow me is not worthy of me. Those who find their life will lose it, and those who lose their life for my sake will find it." So much for the ministry of reconciliation, huh? Actually, this isn't about disregarding the ministry of reconciliation. Rather, Jesus is talking more about the crisis moment that he brings into our lives. I'm using the word crisis in a very specific way here, not as in a catastrophe, but as in a moment of choice that confronts us from time to time. History is filled with stories about moments of crisis and decision. It may be a moment to decide whether to cheat or to follow the rules. Plenty of students can tell you about times when the chips were down and they chose to cheat in order to save themselves from failing an examination. In that moment, there's a crisis of identity and character. Should I do the expedient thing and save my grade, or the honest thing and take my lumps? It may be a moment to decide whether to follow the crowd in taunting some hapless individual or to stand alone by standing up for the one being attacked. Untold numbers of Germans during the reign of the Nazi Party could tell you all about the terrible choices they made to keep their heads down and remain silent, while Jewish friends and neighbors were shipped off, most of them to their deaths. These people knew that doing the right thing would have cost them their lives, along with the lives of their Jewish neighbors. The crisis Jesus brings into our lives is the decision whether to answer the call to discipleship. That seems like an easy enough thing, and it is for most of us most of the time. But sometimes the call to discipleship sets us at odds with others. It's not so much that we're called to walk away and separate ourselves from others. Rather, it is that our choice to become disciples of Jesus may cause others to regard us as odd and to regard our actions as off-putting. If that sounds foreign to us, it's because we live in a society that is still overwhelmingly Christian, even if fewer people than ever actually identify with a particular church. Not only that, ours is a relatively tolerant culture, one where most people most of the time let us alone to believe as we choose, so long as we don't interfere with their right to do the same thing. But there are places in the world where Christian discipleship still can come at a cost. China and certain other countries come immediately to mind. Still, Discipleship has its costs. It calls us into a life that sometimes puts us at odds with others. That's what Jesus means by a sword. Not that he weaponizes us as disciples, but that just as a sword can be used to cut things in half, so the call to discipleship can cut us off from our former lives and even sometimes those we care about. Again, not that we're called to quit caring for others, only that they may quit caring about us. That is the cost of discipleship. When we return tomorrow, another tough word for Jesus about why he came: judgment. But for now, may God continue to bless you and keep you in all that you do this day and in all the days ahead.